Welcome to the College Football Bros. I'm Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
All right, I am going to rank the projected starting quarterbacks in the SEC this episode. A very scary task. Please sound off in the comments below, roast me, tell me why I'm terrible. But I don't think I needed to tell you to do that. I'm sure the SEC fans are going to do that.
And then you
anyway.
can roast his rankings, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we are recording all these episodes on the same day. So I don't know if we're at 1,000 subscribers yet as this episode's coming out, but if we're not, be sure to subscribe. We've got plenty of preview content coming out in the next couple months, so would appreciate that. But let's start with my list. Ryan, tee me up on my own list here.
All right, you got it. Number 14, dead last in the SEC when you hate this guy. He's terrible. Luke Doty from South Carolina.
Wow, you're putting words on my mouth majorly there.
Oh, that's right. This is what you said before pod. So.
I never saw that. He got his feet wet last year as a true freshman, but I don't think expectations, obviously, with my ranking here, should be super high for him. A whole new staff, not much proven talent around him. But eventually I could see Doty being good. Like, he was a big recruit, dual threat. Like, I think there's the potential there. So me putting him 14th is not saying he sucks. It's just early in his career, and track record lately with South Carolina quarterbacks hasn't been great. So I just need to see it first.
All right. Moving on to number 13, the transfer Will Levis for Kentucky.
Yeah, coming in from Penn State, but it's a wide open competition. Like, I don't have a super high confidence predicting anybody here, but Joey Gatewood, of course, is in the running. The youngest option, Bo Allen, is there. Kentucky is likely to pass a lot more this year. They brought in Liam Cohen from the Rams, so going to be trying to get some of that magic from Sean McVay. But none of these guys are proven passers, so it's really hard to put whoever the Kentucky's quarterback is much higher than this. I'm confident that, especially if it's Gatewood or Levis, that they'll be able to run the ball, but not sure about the passing game yet. So just unproven.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for them. All right, moving on to number 12 here. Hey, pretty good for Vandy. Ken Seals.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at his stats from last year, you've got to make some major adjustments. First of all, for the fact that he was a true freshman in a COVID offseason, so that's a tough spot to be thrown into. Secondly, that he is surrounded by the talent that Vanderbilt has, which is not as good as the talent that most schools in the SEC have. Going up against those SEC defenses. So with that in mind, I think he did pretty well. 65% completions, 12 touchdowns, 10 picks. Not terrible, all things considered. If he takes a step forward going into a sophomore year, which I would expect, I think he'll be decent.
Okay. Moving on to number 11. Wouldn't have thought this a couple years ago. Bo Nix of Auburn.
Yeah, this one might be controversial. I saw Lindy's Preview Magazine has him in their top 25 nationally.
Wow.
Athlon has the Auburn quarterback room ranked 7th in the SEC. They did bring in TJ Finley as well. But I don't know. I don't see it right now. Auburn was 12th in the SEC in passing success rate last year. Nix has been under 7 yards per attempt, under 60% completions in each of his first 2 seasons. He can make plays with his legs, which helps, which gives him the potential to be really good. And he was a 5-star, so that the pedigree is there. But I've seen 2 full seasons now, and based on the production so far, sure, I could see you putting him a few slots higher, but I don't think 11th is unreasonable. Maybe Brian Harsin will be able to get more out of him. He's generally done pretty well with quarterbacks, but I don't know. For now, I'm fine with 11th.
I don't think it's unreasonable. I don't. All right, here we're going on to number 10 from Missouri, Connor Bazelak, another young guy.
Yeah, he was a redshirt freshman last year with a new staff, Eli Drinkwitz coming in, so it was hard to expect a whole lot in those circumstances, but he was fine. They went to the run game near the goal line, so his touchdown numbers certainly weren't gaudy, but 67% completions, 7.3 yards per pass attempt. Not bad. He certainly has an argument to be a couple slots higher, but you'll see I'm projecting some improvement from some other guys even more so than him.
Yeah, but I thought he looked good quite a bit last year. Number 9, KJ Jefferson of Arkansas.
Yes, so he is a former 4-star recruit, dual threat. As a redshirt freshman last year, played a little bit, but still very unproven as a passer, that's for sure. But the reason I have him this high is mostly just a bet on Kendall Briles. He's a great offensive coordinator. He's done a really good job with quarterbacks. So, fans behind him are saying, what has KJ Jefferson proven? Nothing really, but I'm banking on the coaching there and the talent.
Yeah, I mean, he did a great job with Felipe Franks last year, so I can see that. All right, moving on to number 8, guy that's probably going to have to take a jump. Mississippi State, you got Will Rogers.
Yeah, he wasn't horrible as a true freshman last year, so you would think with a full offseason for Mike Leach to install his offense, you think he would make that big jump. Jack Abraham is also there, so he's kind of the floor for the quarterback play for Mississippi State. He's coming in from Southern Miss. He's good. It's just ball security is a huge issue, which is very important if you're a quarterback. He throws way too many picks, and that's been pretty consistent. So that's kind of his one bugaboo, but overall he's not terrible either.
All right, moving on to Kellen Mond's replacement at Texas A&M. We've got Haynes King.
Yeah, he was a big recruit last year, and he's the favorite over Zach Calzada, who is a year older than him. And putting Haynes King this high is just, again, another bet on coaching. The fact that, and on King's pedigree, but Jimbo Fisher has generally done a pretty good job with quarterbacks. I don't say really good because, since Jameis Winston, he hasn't had that electric star, but they're always usually solid. Like he did with Kellen Mond. He did a solid job.
He improved
with
him a
Mond.
lot.
So I see the same thing happening with King.
Yeah, I can see that for sure with all the talent that's there too. All right, moving on to number 6, and a transfer at Tennessee. This is pretty high. Hendon Hooker.
Okay, Hendon Hooker has been good. Like, you go back and look what he did on the ground and through the air at Virginia Tech. He's efficient. He's good. So I like him. This is a crowded battle, though. There's Harrison Bailey, I think, is right there neck and neck with him. As a freshman last year, Harrison Bailey, he was a big recruit, played reasonably well when he came in, especially for being a freshman. There's also Brian Maurer, Joe Milton transferring in from Michigan, Caden Salter, a true freshman. So
aren't you going to transfer there too?
What's that?
Aren't you going to transfer there too?
No, because I don't stand a chance against the great quarterback Hendon Hooker. I just, I'm predicting Hooker because I love what I saw from him at Virginia Tech. I don't know. The proof is in the pudding there. And with Josh Heupel, I trust him to develop, pretty good quarterback play.
That part is true. All right, moving on to another coach that can do pretty well with quarterbacks, Florida Gators, Emory Jones.
Yeah, this is becoming a theme here. This is another bet on coaching, but I trust Dan Mullen's coaching more so than all the guys below him. So Emory Jones is in his 4th year with the program at Florida. He's proven to be a very good runner. We know that is going to be a huge weapon for him. Not proven as a passer, but I just trust Dan Mullen. He got, a ton out of Kyle Trask, who was not highly touted at all. Emory Jones is highly touted. He's got a lot of raw talent. I think he's a dark horse Heisman candidate if everything works out for him. So I have his floor, though. The reason he's not higher than this is that the floor is pretty low there just because we don't know how he is as a passer.
Yeah. Yeah, he could he's probably the biggest wild card in this one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here let's move on to number 4. Another guy here that I think has a pretty high ceiling. Myles Brennan from LSU.
Yeah, and he is of course far from a guarantee to be the starter for LSU. Max Johnson, the younger option, is actually reportedly has a leg up in this race. So maybe I'm just clinging to how well I thought Myles Brennan played at the beginning of last year. Though Max Johnson came in and played pretty well himself. But anyway, whoever it is, I think they're going to get really good quarterback play because I know the floor of quarterback play is what Brennan did in those first few games, and he played well other than a couple picks in that first game against Mississippi State. he had some really good stats. So I think you talk about high ceiling. I don't think the ceiling is as high as, say, like an Emory Jones, but I think the floor is much, much higher.
Fair. That's totally fair. All right. Now we're getting to the kind of the cream of the crop here. Number 3, you got JT Daniels of Georgia.
Yeah, he's a tough one. He played really well to end the season last year. He had a favorable schedule, and even going up against Cincinnati, they had some of their best players out. So that's something to consider, but still, I mean, he did what you're supposed to do and put up some big numbers. Now he's got a full off season to be the starter and to learn Monken's offense, Monken to be able to fully implement it. So he should have a big year. I'm having to adjust my expectations for JT Daniels because after that freshman season at USC, I know it was a tough situation. He was a true freshman, but just was not very impressive that year. Didn't seem to get much better as the season went on. But I mean, I think I've recalibrated it after watching Daniels last year. Having him third in a conference with some great quarterbacks, I think is a testament to that.
Yep, I agree. All right, moving on to number 2, Bryce Young of Alabama.
Yep, and maybe there'll be some complaints, maybe say from the Georgia fans that Bryce Young has not played very much, hasn't proven it as much as JT Daniels has, and that's true, but this is just a bet on the Alabama machine. They have churned out Tua and then Mac Jones back-to-back, and Bryce Young was the number 2 overall recruit, so he was a huge recruit a couple years ago. I would expect him to be great. Maybe he'll make some freshman mistakes a la Spencer Rattler like he did at the beginning of last year, and that would open the door for JT Daniels to be ahead of him, but I don't know. There's just some crazy talent both on the team and within him. He's a super, super talented quarterback, so yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's great from day one.
Hard to bet against him.
And that leads us
all right
to number 1, Lane's Ole Miss, Matt Corral.
Yeah, I mean, 71% completions last year, 10.2 yards per pass attempt. Also had 500 yards rushing. I feel like that's an underrated aspect of his game. And that was just year 1 under Lane Kiffin, like we always say, in a COVID offseason for him to implement his system. So the only concern is, for me, is that he had a couple blow-up games where he threw a ton of interceptions. So he needs to avoid that. If he can make, instead of 2 blow-up games where he's throwing like 4 or 5 picks, just make it 1. And then that might be good enough to be the best quarterback in the SEC. So, I just think with Lane Kiffin and that offense, he's going to have another monster year.
I would agree with that. I mean, when I look at the overall list, I think that quarterback battle at LSU is fascinating. But the thing that I was surprised about with that battle is that you had the LSU quarterbacks ahead of Emory Jones at Florida. I kind of think like LSU could, if they play, the reason I was kind of keen on LSU and Florida is because I believe that Mullen can get a lot out of the Florida quarterbacks. He did it with Felipe Franks. You just mentioned, of course, Kyle Trask. But like LSU, if that position plays like the 7th or 8th best in the SEC, then all of a sudden, Coach O and LSU it's a little warmer seat there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Emory Jones was such a tough one because, like I said, I think I'd be more likely to bet Emory Jones to win the Heisman than I would, Max Johnson or Myles Brennan, just because that, like I said, that upside is just limitless. Not that there's a super capped upside with the LSU guys, but just with the running ability, yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm too low on Emory Jones, but
no.
I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that for sure. I'd probably slide him a little higher. I'm confident in that. The other one I might put. I'm not sure I'd have Matt Corral number 1. I know I had a really good year, but we also saw a couple insanely high interception games from him, and he's going to lose his best receiver, Elijah Moore, by far his best receiver. Might hurt. So, not sure I'd put him at 1.
Okay.
And then,
all right, so you'd probably have. Would you have Bryce Young slotted up there, or
I'd have Bryce
JT?
Young number 1.
Okay.
Probably. I mean, it's so close. I mean, I'm splitting hairs here. I think you had a good list. But, I had to try to give you some grief.
Well, no, but to add to that, like 1 through 3, I totally agree with, especially in terms of kind of pure production. But I'm very fascinated to see how they end up playing out, because like I wouldn't be surprised if JT Daniels he plays like top 3 or maybe even plays like 7 or 8. Because I'm on board with him, but he's a little bit of a wild card because of what you mentioned. He had somewhat of an easier slate, but I'm a believer in him, but he is a bit of a wild card.
Alrighty, well, again, let us know in the comments what your thoughts on our list are. We always say, if your favorite team is Georgia or Mississippi State or whoever, you know more about your team than we do. We do our best to cover all of college football and watch as much as we can, but we always love to hear the opinions of the fans. So let us know in the comments. Subscribe if you like our podcast. I just mentioned we have a podcast. We're not only a YouTube channel, so subscribe to the podcast in your app. Sometimes the content there is different than you'll see here. So thank you for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with the top 12 G5 and independent quarterbacks. We'll see you then.
You've been watching the College Football Bros. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and in your podcast app for college football content all year round. For bonus episodes and access to our Discord chat, join our Patreon at patreon.com/collegefootballbros. Thanks for watching.